To start this build, I cut all my 2x4 frame pieces according to the cut list. You can find the cut list in the blog post in the link in the description below. I drilled pocket holes into the short frame pieces in order to build the two frames for the sides. I used 2.5-inch pocket hole screws to attach the two side frames together, like shown. I used my Kreg AccuCut and circular saw to cut down my plywood into small pieces that would fit inside these frames. After I sanded, I drilled 3/4-inch pocket holes around the outside edge of both pieces, and then I inserted into the frame and attached with 1.25-inch pocket hole screws like shown. Then I cut my 2x4 pieces that would attach these two side frames together. I attached using 1.5-inch pocket holes and 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. I just attached these like shown between the two side panels. This will give me a top and a bottom 2x4 frame piece. Once the frame was assembled, I inserted a piece of plywood into the bottom of the cabinet, just like this, and attached using pocket holes and screws. This will be the bottom of your cabinet stand. Then I added the middle divider with 2x2s in the front and back and a 2x4 at the top for support. I attached a piece of plywood inside the cabinet into the middle divider, making sure that it was at least flush with one side of the 2x2s. Now it's time to start making the drawers. I cut all my drawer pieces using my miter saw and cut a dado on them in the table saw. Once the dados were cut, I used pocket holes and screws to attach the drawers together. Before attaching the last side of the drawer, I made sure to insert a piece of 1/4-inch plywood into the dado grooves. Then I installed the drawer slides. I used a 1.5-inch spacer block to install the drawer slides 1.5 inch from the top of the cabinet frame. Then I attached the drawers in place and made any adjustments as needed. I lined up the drawer fronts and brad nailed them in place, and then once they were in place with the brad nails, I used 1.5-inch wood screws from the inside of the drawer to make sure that they were attached very securely. I added a door on one side of the cabinet and left the other side open. I cut a piece of plywood the size to fit for the door and then glued and nailed on some trim in a design on the front, just like shown. I just mitered the corners of the trim and glued and nailed them in place. Then I used my Kreg concealed hinge jig to drill holes to place the concealed hinges. Once that was done, I simply attached the door in place. Then I joined 3 2x boards to create the top. To join these boards, I simply glued and clamped and waited until the glue was dry. Once the glue had dried on the top, I used my Kreg AccuCut again to trim the tabletop down to size, and then I sanded a lot. Then I worked my way around the top edge of the entire cabinet, drilling 1.5-inch pocket holes to attach the top using 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. It would have been easier to do this prior to having the whole thing mostly assembled, but it just slipped my mind, so I had to do it after the fact. Then I attached the top using 2.5-inch pocket hole screws through the pocket holes that I just drilled. It was kind of a pain, but it's doable. Then I added some 3.25-inch baseboard trim just along the bottom of the cabinet, and then added some small, I think it was maybe like 2.5-inch crown molding around the top edge of the cabinet. I think that the trim just gives it a little bit something extra. I think it looks really good. To finish the build, I added a 1/4-inch backing just to kind of cover the hole in the cabinets in the back. And then I stained the top and painted the bottom, added some drawer and door hardware, and that was it. I like having these drawers in the TV cabinet because it gives me a good place that you can hide your remote, and then behind the door you can hide DVDs, anything else that's not really attractive that comes in handy but you don't really want to show off. Then the open cabinet leaves you some space where you can put some decorative items, like of course the obligatory pillow and blanket. So if you're ready to build your own, be sure to check out the links in the descriptions below. Until next time, happy building!